مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.
الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبارك وسلم. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسماء ذات البروج صدق الله العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصل عليه. Dear respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. First and foremost, I would like to say Ramadan Mubarak to you all. I wish you all a happy Ramadan. And secondly, as we know, currently the world is in a crisis and we are dealing with the coronavirus, whereby the majority of us are secluded in our homes. This doesn't mean though, however, we don't continue with our normal ibadah. This doesn't mean that we don't continue to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, this should be an encouragement for us. It should be an encouragement for us to continue to read the Qur'an, to read our prayers, to listen to more Islamic lectures. This is a perfect opportunity for us. It's now or never. So, and especially since this month is the Qur'an al-Kareem and our focus should be with the Qur'an al-Kareem, I have decided to focus my attention and maintain my focus upon these lectures, upon the Tafseer of the Qur'an al-Kareem, inshaAllah ta'ala. And khususan, I wanted to target the stories of the Qur'an al-Kareem as well as the stories of the Prophets alayhimus salam, and inshallah we will take benefit from them. So to begin with, the Surat al-Buruj, i.e. in regards to the constellations, whereby inshallah soon we'll understand what exactly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means when He talks about these constellations. Very firstly, why was the Surat itself named Surat al-Buruj? Why was it firstly named Surat al-Buruj? The reason is because of Tasmiyatul Kul bijuz'ihi. And what this is very simply, it's naming the whole of something because of a part of it. It's naming the whole of something because of a part of it. So a very easy example is, if you look at the Surat Kahf, you find in Surat Kahf many narrations. You'll find many narrations about Musa and Khidr. You will also find the narration about the Ashabul Kahf, the people of the cave. However, what you will realize is that the entire Surat is not based upon the people of the cave. However, only a part of the Surat is named. It's based upon the people of the cave. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the name Ashabul Kahf because He has named the entire Surat by a part of the Surat, i.e. the Ashabul Kahf. Similarly here, in Surat al-Buruj, the entire Surat is not in regards to the Buruj, the constellation, the cluster of stars, but rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen to name the entire Surat by a part of it. Now, just a bit more detail in regards to the actual Surat itself. The Surat is a 22 verse Surat, it's 22 ayats long. And of course, as we know, in regards to this Surat, this is a Makkiyah Surat. In regards to it being Makkiyah, this was revealed at the time where the Muslims, they were, a lot of people either were, at that time there wasn't many Muslims, or a lot of people had an inclination to become a Muslim, had a feeling, had a want to become a Muslim. And at this time, of course, the persecution of the kuffar was at its climax. And it was at this point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed these 22 verses to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in order to give them reassurance, to let them know that, the believers have been trialed before, the believers have gone through tribulation before, but it's not the end of the world. Don't worry, these things have happened. And this was as a reassurance for the Muslims, to remind them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them. Now, in regards to the actual surah itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions in the very first verse in this surah, He mentions وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. And underneath this, Ibn Kathir, he writes, يُقْسِمُ تَعَالَى بِالسَّمَاءِ وَبُرُوجِهَا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has taken an oath. And this is very clear. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَالسَّمَاء, this waw here is for qasam. It's for taking an oath. يُقْسِمُ تَعَالَى بِالسَّمَاءِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken an oath by the sky. وَبُرُوجِهَا, and by its constellations. Inshallah, the tafsir of Buruj will come very shortly. وَهِيَ نُجُومُ الْعِظَامِ. And these are the great stars. كَمَا تَقَدَّمَ بَيَانُ ذَلِكَ فِي قَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى. Just as that which has been explained in the ayat previously. Whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا. So glory be to the one who created in the skies these buruj, the great constellations. And in regards to the interpretation of what exactly these buruj are, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, firstly He has picked this qasam. And in regards to this qasam, actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken this oath. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken the oath specifically on the sky is because when a person in today's day and age, when he takes an oath, it's not the case that if I was to make an oath, or if you were to make an oath, no one would be saying, I make an oath upon this pen. No one will turn and say, I make an oath on this pencil. Or no one will, make an oath on anything. That's not of value. Rather, when an oath is taken, we try to take oaths on those things which have a value, those things which are held in high esteem. Like, for example, if I say I take an oath on my mother, if I take an oath on the Qur'an al-Kareem. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has taken an oath on the sky. And simply this is for the purpose of ta'zim, to show the greatness of the sky. So it's not a light matter, as in this isn't a light oath which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken. This is a great oath which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken. But what's so great about this sky? Why is it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taken an oath by the sky? Because the sky is so great because of Dhatul Buruj. It is the possessor of these buruj. In regards to the tafseer of buruj, what the buruj actually are, there's many different interpretations. And the first which is mentioned here in Tafseer Ibn Kathir, he mentions al-Buruj allati fiha al-Hars. Al-Buruj, the buruj is that which within it there are gods. قال عن Yahya ibn Rafi', he mentions al-Buruj kusur fi sama. The buruj are castles in the sky, they are fortresses in the sky. And these fortresses of course have gods. And in regards to these gods, who are these gods? These gods are the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these buruj in the sky which is possessive of these buruj, which contains these buruj are the castles in the sky, and they have gods, and the gods are the angels protecting the sky. This is the first interpretation of what was-sama'i zatil buruj is. In regards to the other interpretations, some have interpreted this as the 12 signs of the zodiac in astronomy, according to ancient astronomy, however. So some have interpreted it as the 12 signs of zodiac, as we know, and it's been mentioned here in the tafsir of Imam Sawi, in the Hashia of Imam Sawi, and he talks about these very simply. He just mentions them: Jawza'u wa Sartan wal Asad wa Sumbula wal Mizan wal Akrab. These are very simply the Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. So the way people used to predict the future. So particularly, especially now, you will find people who, depending on what birth month you're born into, so if you're born in a specific month, you will fall into a specific zodiac sign, and that will predict your personality traits. So these have been mentioned in Surah al-Buruj as an ancient belief. And this is one of the interpretation of what the Buruj are in the skies. So they are a cluster of stars, and people used them to predict the future. And alongside that, another interpretation given here is وَاخْتَارَ ابن جرير أنها منازل الشمس والقمر وهي 12 برجا. So Ibn Jarir, he chose the view that the position of the sun and the moon are 12 burj or 12 buruj. And he mentions here تسير الشمس في كل واحد منها شهرا. So the sun, it travels through each of these burj in 1 month. So the purpose of these is that the sun, it will pass through each of these burj in 1 month. وَيَسِيرُ الْقَمَرُ فِي كُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِنْهَا يَوْمَيْنِ وَثُلُثًا. And the moon, it will pass through each of these burj in 2 1/3 day. And very simply, he does the maths for us here. But if anyone wants to do some quick maths, then to figure this out, there's 12 buruj, and if the moon takes 2 1/3 day to pass through one, it's simply 2 1/3, so 2.33 times it by 12, which will give you approximately 28. So Ibn Kathir, he mentions that the moon will pass through each of these buruj through each of these burj, and it will take the moon 2 1/3 day to pass through each, which will give you 28 days. However, this is not quite a month. So for this reason he says فَذَلِكَ ثَمَانِيَةَ وَعِشْرُونَ مَنْزِلَةٌ. So and this is 23. This is 28 positions. وَيَسْتَمِرُّ لَيْلَتَيْنِ. And for 2 nights the moon is hidden. Therefore 28 plus 2 gives you 30, which is 30 days in the month. And this is the interpretation which has been chosen by Ibn Jarir in regards to what the Buruj are. And it just goes to show you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever he makes an oath, whenever he picks a custom, it's upon those things which are great, which have great significance, great value in the world of ours today. He mentions in the next ayat, وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ. So in regards to the first ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. You'll notice the waw, وَالسَّمَاء. This waw is for custom here, where about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he picks a custom. In the next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ. This is ataf, this is carrying on. So the custom is not only upon the sama, the custom is also upon وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ. And Yawm al-Maw'ud, what is Yawm al-Maw'ud? Yawm al-Maw'ud is the promised day. Now if I was to ask you, what do you think the promised day is? Only one thing will come to your mind. Of course, it's the one day which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises, which is the day of judgment. And here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only picks a custom upon the sky, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also picks a custom upon the promised day, which is the day of judgment. And in the third verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues and mentions وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he also picks a custom upon the shahid and the mashhud. The shahid being the thing which is, the shahid being the witnesser, and the mashhud being the thing which is witnessed. And to put this into context for you, what exactly a shahid and a mashhud is. For instance, just say I was walking outside my house now, and I see a car accident. I am the shahid. I am the one who is witnessing. The thing which has occurred is the mashhud. For example, even better, if a person goes and he watches Barcelona versus PSG, he goes to watch the football game, Barcelona versus PSG. He is the one who is witnessing, right? He is the shahid. And the thing which is the mashhud is the defeat which PSG suffered, which was 6-5, of course. So the thing which he's seen, the thing which occurred, the thing which happened, that is the mashhud. So them losing 6-5 is the mashhud. But him witnessing that in person, he is the shahid. And of course, I only mention these examples to make it easier for understanding. In regards to these verses, وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ, the Mufassirun have differed into what they are exactly. However, Ibn Kathir, he mentions here وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. So as we said, Yawm al-Maw'ud is in reference to Yawm al-Qiyamah. And in regards to Yawm al-Maw'ud, that is Yawm al-Qiyamah. And he also mentions here وَشَاهِدٍ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ. And shahid is Yawm al-Jum'ah. Inshallah we'll come to know as to why he has mentioned that the shahid is Yawm al-Jum'ah. So he mentions here, وَشَاهِدٍ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ وَمَا طَلَعَتْ الشَّمْسُ وَلَا غَرَبَتْ عَلَى يَوْمٍ أَفْضَلُ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ. So Yawm al-Jum'ah, the sun does not, so the shahid is Yawm al-Jum'ah, the sun does not set nor does it rise upon a day which is better than Yawm al-Jum'ah. وَفِيهِ سَاعَةٌ, and within it there is an hour, لَا يُوَافِقُهَا عَبْدُ مُسْلِمٍ يَسْأَلُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فِيهَا خَيْرًا إِلَّا إِعْطَاهُ إِيَّاهُ. So there is not within the day of Jummah an hour except whereby a slave will ask something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will not leave except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to him. This is the beauty of Yawm al-Jum'ah. And in regards to Mashhud, huwa Yawm al-Arafah. And this is of course I mentioned that there's an ikhtilaf in the ma'na, but there is a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also mentioned in the Tafseer. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اليوم الموعود يوم القيامة وإن الشاهد يوم الجمعة وإن المشهود يوم العرفة. So that is in reference to these 3 days. And Ibn Abbas, he mentions in regards to the shahid, in fact, he mentions that the shahid is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the witnesser is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the mashhud is Yawm al-Qiyamah. The reason as to why he's mentioned this is because the shahid being the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the one who will intercede, and the mashhud is Yawm al-Qiyamah, and that will take place on the Day of Judgment. And also from Ibn Abbas has been mentioned that the shahid is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the mashhud is the Yawm al-Qiyamah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put everyone to task. And aside from that, the khulasa of this entire thing, it's been mentioned, وَقَالَ الْأَكْثَرُونَ, and most have said, عَلَى أَنَّ الشَّاهِدْ يَوْمُ الْجُمْعَةِ وَالْمَشْهُودْ يَوْمُ الْعَرَفَةِ. So that the shahid is Yawm al-Jum'ah and the mashhud is Yawm al-Arafah. But why is it that this has been mentioned? In another verse in the Qur'an al-Kareem, it becomes clear. Ibn Kathir, he mentions as to why this Yawm al-Ma'ud, the promised day. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just to bring the picture back for you, just to make everyone understand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has picked a qasam firstly on the sama. He's picked a qasam, a promise, an oath upon the sky. He's picked an oath upon the promised day, which is the Day of Judgment. He's picked a promise on Shahid and Mashhud. Shahid being Yawm al-Jum'ah, Mashhud being Yawm al-Arafah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has picked a qasam upon the following things. So what exactly is this Shahid and Mashhud, i.e. the Yawm al-Jum'ah and the Yawm al-Arafah? What is this about? Qala Imam Ahmad. So it's been narrated from Imam Ahmad. جاء رجل من اليهود إلى عمر بن الخطاب. So a man from the Jews, he came to Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, فقال, and he said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O leader of the believers, إنكم تقرؤون آية في كتابكم. Indeed you guys, you read an ayat from your book, you read from the Qur'an al-Kareem an ayah. Indeed you guys, you read from your book an ayah. لو علينا معشر اليهود نزلت. Had this been revealed to the community of the Yahud, had this ayat been revealed to us, had this ayat been revealed to the Jews, لَإِتَّخَذْنَا ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ عِيدًا. We would have taken this day to be a celebration. We would have taken this day to be an Eid for us. وقال, so Sayyidina Umar, he replies to him, he says, أي ayah, which ayah are you talking about? Why is this? قال, and the Jew replies, قوله اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي. On that day I have completed for you your deen, and I have bestowed upon you my blessings. So this is the ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had perfected the deen for the Muslims. فقال عمر والله إني لا أعلم اليوم الذي نزلت على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And Sayyidina Umar, in response to this, radiyallahu ta'ala, and he responds that wallahi, indeed, see again the wa has come here again. So wallahi, I said, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed la'a'lamu, I know the day in which nazalat, it was revealed ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I know the day in which this ayat was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wasa'a allati nazalat fiha ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I know the hour in which this ayat was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ashiyatul urfa fi yawm al-Jum'ah. It was in the eve of Arafah. in Yawm al-Jum'ah. Allahu Akbar. So this is the reason as to why the Shahid and the Mashhud has been mentioned as Yawm al-Jum'ah and Yawm al-Arafah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has picked a qasam upon all of these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, firstly, He has picked a qasam upon the Shahid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has picked a qasam upon the He has picked a qasam upon the Sama. He has picked a qasam upon the promised day. He has picked a qasam upon the Shahid and the Mashhud. So the four things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has picked a qasam upon. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He moves on to the next verse in the Qur'an al-Kareem, where He mentions Qutila ashabul ukhdud. So the first thing we want to know is the word Qutila. Qutila comes from the word Qatala. And the Qutila is the majhul form, For those who are Arabic students, this is the majhul form. And generally, when you say Qutila means he was killed. But here it's in reference to not he was killed, but curse. This is more so a curse. So if you say Qutila fulan, curse so and so. That's why it's in reference to. So here, that's the first thing in regards to Qutila. And inshallah, the next two words, Ashabul Ukhdud, will become clear after I mentioned to you this narration from the Tafseer. So from now, there is a very from this point, there is a narration which has been mentioned in Ibn Kathir as well as in Hashya Sawi, whereby it's been narrated from Imam Ahmad. So up to this point, all you need to know is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has picked a qasam by four things, as I've mentioned before, and this qasam will soon become clear as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picked this qasam. So it's been narrated as in what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about. Qutila ashabul ukhdud. So cursed were the people of the pit, cursed were the companions of the pit. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. So here it's been narrated in a very long narration from Imam Ahmad, where he mentions here Kana malikun, so there was a king, wa kana lahu sahir, and for him there was a sorcerer. So there was a king and there was a sorcerer. إني قد فلما قبر قال للملك إني قد قبرت. So when this sorcerer grew old, he came to the king and he said to the king that indeed, I've grown old. The sahir, the sorcerer, said to the king that indeed I've grown old. So he says to him, indeed I've grown old. فَبْعَثْ إِلَيِّ غُلَامًا أَعْلَمَهُ السِّحْرَ. So he says to me, bring to me a young boy, so I may teach him magic. فَبَعَثَ إِلَيْهِ غُلَامًا يَعْلَمَهُ. So he brought to him a boy, so he may teach him magic. And after this point, this boy, he began to attend the lessons of this sahir, this sorcerer, to learn magic from him. So in case if the actual sorcerer did die, there was someone to succeed him, someone to work for the king after that. وَكَانَ بَيْنَ السِّحْرِ وَبَيْنَ الْمَلِكِ راهب فَأَتَاءَ الْغُلَامُ عَلَى الرَّاهِبِ فَسَمِعَ مِنْ كَلَامِهِ. So on the way that this boy, he used to go to this sahir, this sorcerer, as he used to go to him, he used to pass by a monk, a rahib. He used to pass by this monk, and he used to pass by him. فَسَمِعَ مِنْ كَلَامِهِ فَعَجَّبَهُ. So he used to listen to his words. He used to listen to what he had to say to him, and he used to become amazed by what he had to say. وَكَانَ إِذَا أَتَى السَّاهِرُ ضَرَبَهُ. So when he used to go to the sahir, when he used to go to the sorcerer, he used to hit him. And of course, this is because as he used to go to attend the lesson of the monk, as he used to go to attend the lesson of the sorcerer, he used to come late because he used to go to the monk to listen to his words and become amazed. So he mentioned this to the monk, and the monk told him that, look, whenever you go to the lesson of this sahir, mention to him that your people kept you waiting, and whenever you come home, when they beat you at home for coming late, you mention to your people that that the Sahir kept you waiting. He kept you prolonged, he kept you there for a while. And this continued to happen for a lengthy amount of time, until he mentions here in the Tafseer, Zata Yomin, so one day, Iza ata ala dabatin azimatin. So one day he passed by, he was walking upon a path, and in front of him came a great beast, a wild animal, and قد حبست الناس فلا يستطيعون أن يجوزوا. So this beast, it wasn't allowing the people to pass, it was blocking them in the road, it was harming the people, it wasn't allowing the pass for them to pass. فقال اليوم أعلم أمر الراهب أحب إلى الله. So he said, today I will come to know whoso is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it the Amr of the Rahib, or is it the Amr of the Sihr? Is it the Rahib? Is it the monk, or is it the sorcerer? Who is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? فَقَالَ فَأَخُذْ حَجْرًا فَقَالَ. So he took a stone, he took a very small stone, and he said, Allahumma in kana amru rahib ahabba ilayka min amri sahir faqtul hazihi dab hatta yajuzuna. So he said, he picked up the stone and he said, Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this rahib, if this monk, if what he does, if what he has been telling me, if all of his actions, if what his amr, if it is better than the sorcerer, then allow this stone to kill this beast. And of course it mentions here waramaha faqtuluha, and he threw it, faqtuluha, and he killed this beast. وَمَدَى النَّاسِ فَأَخْبِرُوا الرَّاهِبِ. So the people then, they began to pass, because he had killed this beast, and he informed the Rahib, and the Rahib mentions, the monk says to him, Ya bunay, anta afdal minni, wa innaka satabtali. So he says to him, Oh bunay, oh my beloved son, you are better than me, you are much better than me. Wa innaka satabtali. Indeed, soon you will face a great tribulation, a great trial. فَإِنْ ابْتَلَيْتَ فَلَا تَدُلَّ عَلَيْهِ. So if you face this tribulation, so if you come to face this tribulation, do not فَلَا تَدُلَّ عَلَيْهِ, don't indicate to me, do not tell them about me, do not say to them that, oh, you know of me, keep me hidden. So فكان الغلام يبرئ الأكمى والأبرص وسائر الأدواء ويشفيهم. So this Ghulam, he was capable then of curing those people who were blind, he was capable of curing those people who had leprosy, and all of the other diseases, he was able to cure them. And وَكَانَ لِلْمَلِكِ الْجَلِيسِ وَكَانَ لِلْمَلِكِ جَلِيسِ. So for the king, he had a jalis, and we'll just call him for now so he had a jalis, he was the courtier of the king, he was the wazir of the king, the minister of the king, and he himself was blind. So this courtier, this jalis, he was blind. فَسَمِعَ بِهِ فَأَتَاهُ. So he heard about this, he heard about this boy who could cure people, and he brought to him loads of gifts, and he says to him that, if you can cure me. So the jalis, he comes to the boy and he says, if you can cure me, all of these gifts are for you, you can keep them all. And the boy, Allahu Akbar, what does he reply to him? He says, فَقَالَ مَا أَنَا أَشْفِي أَحَدًا. I do not cure anyone. This is what the boy replies to him, I don't cure anyone. إِنَّمَا يَشْفِي اللَّهُ Azza wa Jal. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He cures the people. فَإِنْ آمَنْتَ بِهِ. So if you believe, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahu shifa'uhu. Allahu shifahu. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will cure you. Allahu shifaka. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will cure you. And of course He accepts, and he says, yep, that's fine. I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He cured him. He gave the ability to the boy to cure him simply because he believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happened, of course, ثُمَّ أَتَى الْمَلِكَ الْجَلِيسِ مِنْهُ. So the jalis of the Malik, the minister of the courtier of the king, he comes back and he sits in his usual place where he sits. And the king, he looks towards him, in shock. Suddenly, look, his eyesight's returned. So he says to him, Man radda alayka basruka. Who returned to you your eyesight? فَقَالَ رَبِّي. So he replies to him, the courtier replies to him, my lord. فَقَالَ أَنَا. So the king replies to him, me? Was it me who cured your eyesight? قَالَ. So the courtier, he replies back to him, La, it wasn't you. رَبِّي وَرَبُّكَ اللَّهِ. It was my Lord and your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who cured me. وَقَالَ وَلَكَ رَبِّي غَيْرِي. And for you there is a Lord other than me. This is what the king said to him. Because at this time, the people, they were worshipping the king at this time. So he said to him that, for you there is another Lord other than me. So the Jalis, he mentions, قَالَ نَعَمْ رَبِّي وَرَبُّكَ. So he said to him, yes, my Lord and your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَمْ يَزِلْ يُعَذِّبُهُ حَتَّى دَلَّ عَلَى الْغُلَامِ. So he began to punish him. He began to beat him up. And he began to beat him up so much until it came to a point where he admitted who cured him. He indicated upon the boy. He told the king that there was a boy who cured him. So the king, he calls towards his army, and he says to his army that, bring to me that boy. So they go and they fetch the boy for him, and he brings the boy. And the same thing he asks him. He says to him, فبعث إليه فقال يا بني بلغ من سحرك أن تبرئ الأكمى والأبرص. So he says to me, it's reached me, the news has reached me that you are able to cure those people who are blind and those people who are lepers. And he simply replied, قال ما أشفي أحدا. I don't cure anyone, rather it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he replies, قال أنا. And the same thing, لا. وقال is there for you another Lord other than me? And simply he replies, look, it's my Lord and your Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he begins to beat this boy. فَأَخَذَهُ أَيْضًا بِالْعَذَابِ. So he gripped him also, he took a hold of him, and he started to punish him. فَلَمْ يَزِلْ بِهِ حَتَّى دَلَّ عَلَى الرَّاهِبِ. So then he began to beat him until he indicated upon the rahib, until he told the king about the rahib who initially gave him the da'wah. Initially he gave him the kalam which impressed him. And so he brought the rahib. وَقَالَ إِرْجِعْ عَنْ دِينِكَ. So he said to him, look, return from your deen. This is nonsense what you're believing, and you're supposed to be believing in me. إِرْجِعْ عَنْ دِينِكَ. Return from your deen. فَأَبَى. Allahu Akbar. He refused. He said, no, I'm not going to return on my deen. No matter what you do to me, I will never return. فَوَدَعَ الْمِنْشَارِ فِي رَأْسِهِ. So he placed a saw in the middle of his head, حَتَّى وَقَعَ شَقَاهُ. Until it occurred that he had split him in half. Until he had split him entirely in half. Allah. وَقَالَ لِلْأَعْمَى. So he said to the individual who used to be blind, to his jalis, he said to him, إِرْجِعْ عَنْ دِينِكَ. The same thing, look, return from your deen. And similarly, he said no. So what do you think he did? فَوَضَعَ الْمِنْشَارِ فِي رَأْسِهِ. So he placed a saw in the middle of his head, حَتَّى شَقَاهُ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. Until he sliced him, until he split him in half. So he placed the saw on his head and he split him in half. This is simply because he wouldn't return from his deen and worship the king again. And then he mentioned to the boy, وَقَالَ لِلْغُلَامِ إِرْجِعْ عَنْ دِينِكَ. And he said, look, return on your deen. And similarly here, the boy, he would not return from his deen. So he said to his Sayyid that, you know what, with this boy, I want you to take him, اذهبوا به إلى جبل كذا كذا. So take him to so and so mountain. فَاسْعَدُوا بِهِ الْجَبَلِ. So begin to climb this mountain. And when you reach the top of him, if he doesn't return upon his deen, if he doesn't come back to believing in me, then throw him from this mountain. So he went and they followed the commands of this Malik, and they went up to this mountain and they asked the boy that, are you going to return on your deen? And he said, no, I'm not going to return from my deen. I'm going to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they began to get ready to throw the boy off. And it mentions here, فَرَجَفَ بِهِمْ الْجَبَلْ فَسَكَتُوا فَرَجَفَ. And then the mountain began to tremble. Allahu Akbar. The mountain began to tremble. And what happened was, all of the soldiers fell off the mountain and the boy remained. Then this boy, he comes back to the king. And he says to the king that, look, I'm here again. And the king's astonished, What is this? What's happened to my companions? And he mentions to him that, look, what happened to your companions is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dealt with them. So the king, he calls again his soldiers and he mentions to them, look, come here, take this boy to the river, take him to the ocean and drown him. So the same thing, they go to the ocean, they go into the river and they ask him. They say, Man Rabbuka, who's your Lord? And he says, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my Lord. And he wouldn't return from his deen. So they tried to drown him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he causes the river to swallow up the soldiers, and this boy returns back to the king once again. And same thing, he asks him, what's happened to my soldiers? And he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dealt with them. Then the boy speaks to the king and he says to him, إِنَّكَ لَسْتَ بِقَاتِلِي حَتَّى تَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُكَ. So he says to him that indeed you are not capable of killing me, hatta tafal, until you do what I command you to do. You are not capable of killing me except that you do what I command you to do. So qala ma huwa. So the king replies to him, what is this that I need to do so I can kill you? So the boy says to him, tajma an-nas fi sa'idin wahidin. Gather the people in one plain, gather the people in one land. And he says to him, وَتُسَلِّبُنِي عَلَى جِزْءٍ ثُمَّ تَأْخُذْ سَحْمًا. So he says to him, and you need to tie me upon a tree trunk, and you need to take an arrow. ثُمَّ دَعْ سَحْمًا فِي قَبْضِ الْقَوْسِ. Then take this arrow and put it into a bow. So take this arrow and put it into a bow. And once you've done that, ثُمَّ قَالَ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ رَبِّ الْغُلَامِ. Then say out loud, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbil Ghulam, the Lord of this boy. Thumma armuni, then fire this bow towards me, then fire this at me. فَإِنَّكَ إِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ قَتَلْتَنِي. So if you fire this bow, قَتَلْتُنِي, if you fire this bow at me like this, indeed you will be able to kill me. فَجَمَعَ النَّاسِ فِي سَعِيدٍ وَاحِدٍ وَسَلَبَهُ عَلَى جِزْعٍ. So the king, he did that. He gathered the people. He gathered all of the people in the kingdom. And he gathered them all together. And what he did was, he gathered them all in a place. And he did exactly what the boy said. He tied him, وَسَلَبَهُ عَلَى جِزْءٍ. So he tied him upon a tree trunk. ثُمَّ أَخَذَ سَحْمًا. So then he took an arrow. ثُمَّ وَضَعَ سَحْمًا فِي قَبْضِ الْقَوْسِ. Then he began to put this arrow into the bow. قال بسم الله رب الغلام, and he said, in بسم الله رب الغلام, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of this boy. ثم رماه فوضع السهم في صدغه. Then he fired it, and the arrow hit the boy straight into the temple. فوضع يده على صدغه, and the boy, he then placed his hand upon his head, upon his temple, upon his forehead. موضع السهم, upon the place of the arrow. فمات. And then he died. Allahu Akbar. Then he died. فَقَالَ النَّاسِ آمَنَّا بِرَبِّ الْغُلَامِ ثَلَاثًا. And then the people who had seen this, they all began to say, we آمَنَّا, we believe بِرَبِّ الْغُلَامِ, in the Lord of this boy. We believe in the Lord of this boy. 3 times they proclaimed this. فَأَتَى الْمَلِكِ فَقَالَ لَهُ أَرَأَيْتَ مَا كُنْتَ تَحْذُرُ. And of course, he realized at this point, the Malik, what the boy had actually done, and that he had purposely gathered the people simply because this king wasn't able to kill the boy except that he mentioned the name of Rabb before he could kill this boy, except that he could mention the Rabb of this ghulam. And the people had witnessed this, and because of this they had accepted Islam. They had accepted that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the Lord. But of course, the story doesn't end here. The narration doesn't end here. It's mentioned here that the king here, فَأَمْرَ بِأُخْدُودٍ, so he ordered that his army to dig a pit, وَأَضْرَمَ النِّيرَانِ, and he kindled a fire. And within this, مَنْ لَمْ يَرْجِعْ عَنْ دِينِهِ فَأَحْمَوْهُ. So he said that whosoever does not return upon his deen, I will burn him, I will set him ablaze. فَفْعَلُوا حَتَّى جَاءَتْ إِمْرَةٌ. So what he started to do, he set a pit on fire, and he began to ask people, do you believe in Allah, or do you believe in me? And the people, of course, they replied, look, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whosoever didn't return on the deen, he began to throw them into the pit. حَتَّى جَاءَتْ إِمْرَأَةٌ مَعَهُ سَبِيٌّ لَهَا, until it came to a point where there was a woman who came towards this king, and with her was a small child, a very small child, young, he couldn't even speak, this child. فَتَقَاسَعَتْ, and this woman, she didn't want to go in. She was refraining from going in. She didn't want to go in the fire. أَن تَقَعَ فِيهَا, that she go within it. فقال لها الغلام الله أكبر يا أماه اسبري فإنك على الحق. Allahu Akbar. So much so that this ghulam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave the power to this ghulam, this small child, to speak, and he said to his mother, Ya amahu, O mother, isbiri, be patient, فإنك على الحق, indeed you are upon the truth. And of course the mother then entered the fire. And of course we know that those people who were tortured and were killed by the king and the malik were of course believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah I'm going to leave it there, and in the next lecture we will continue from where we left off in relation to the Ashab al-Ukhdud. So I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to all have taken benefit.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.